As we noted earlier, Nazis, even high-ranking ones, could enjoy such activities which could make ordinary people's hair stand on end. When work is fun. The Hitler system of extermination of so-called subhumans could not have existed if there were no people who really liked it. Service in concentration camps and occupied territories provided ample opportunities for sadistic fantasies. The low ranks indulged in various interests, but the officers had more opportunities. For instance, there are reports that German officers in Poland, Belarus, and other areas participated in hunting humans, much like as it is depicted in action films. Out of large numbers of prisoners of war, a suitable number of young and healthy individuals could be chosen to make it more engaging. Furthermore, service in a concentration camp or a prisoner of war camp provided an opportunity to have fun without leaving the workspace. For instance, Buchenwald's official executioner, Sommer, was so fond of his job that he would torture prisoners purely for his own enjoyment. They said that a fresh corpse under his bed served him as a sleeping pill. Somehow he slept better with it. Women in the SS did not officially have ranks, but often held officer positions, senior warden, camp commandant and other. Accordingly, they also had opportunities to have fun. Hermine Brandsteiner, who served as the chief overseer at Majdanek in Ravensburg, was nicknamed the Stomping Mayor and the Mayor of Majdanek for her love of a peculiar sport, or rather dance. The overseer would knock one of the prisoners off her feet and beat her to death, tramping and kicking her. This was carried out apart from any planned execution. That is, it was purely for enjoyment and entertainment. Irma Gries is a very famous personality. As part of her duty, Irma had to supervise the prisoners at work and provide general supervision. For instance, she would organize cruel demonstrations by starving the shepherd dogs and then releasing them on a group of prisoners. Gries's favorite pastime was playing Russian roulette. She would line up several prisoners, draw a pistol, cock the hammer, and then methodically point the barrel from one individual to another, selecting the most interesting target. Also, Gries loved to spend her free time at the estate of her colleague, the famous Dr. Mengele. Although she had no medical training, she enjoyed observing surgeries, particularly mastectomies. Gries' colleague, the Lagerführer of Auschwitz and commandant of the Bergen-Belsen camp, Joseph Kramer, took pleasure in observing the gas chamber's operation through a small window, despite the fact that his position did not require direct involvement in this vile task. Kramer's subordinate, Otto Moll, invented another game. He placed pregnant female prisoners in Auschwitz around the fires in which the bodies of the killed were burned and shot them in the stomach. The essence of the game was to correctly guess whether the victim would fall into the fire or die from a wound. In Buchenwald, the head overseer and the wife of Commandant Karl Koch, Ilse Koch, liked to play cowboys. Prisoners were placed around the central parade ground on three sides at equal intervals. Ilse flew onto the parade ground on horseback and began firing a pistol at whomever she would hit. Her spouse did not mind it at all. Some details about personal life. Intimate issue played a special role in the leisure time of Nazi officers. In the Reich, this matter was given considerable importance, and care was taken to ensure that the intimate appetites of the military were satisfied, preferably without violating racial rules. Having a mistress for a high-ranking officer was not only not prohibited, but even desirable. This did not affect his image as an excellent family man in any way, and his wife should not object. It was a matter of demographic logic. In the Reich, they determined that due to the substantial depletion of men during wartime, it would be appropriate to permit the most successful of surviving men to engage in polygamy, ensuring an adequate number of children are born. So even Bormann openly and regularly had affairs. His wife, who gave birth to either 9 or 10 children in marriage, not only did not object but also encouraged her husband. She was the leader of the women's movement for polygamy. Military personnel in the units were also entitled to vouchers for visiting brothels. Such were organized from German women considered civil servants, receiving a salary and a number of professional benefits. However, there's no reason to envy them. Each employees, let's say Luftwaffe pilots, had to serve at least 10 clients per day. In the infantry, the numbers reached multiple dozens. Brothels were created in the occupied territories as well and were popular. True, this type of leisure was hardly accessible for SS officers, as they were categorically forbidden any contact with inferiors. However, some SS men solved the problem simply. They just kidnapped a girl they liked and then killed her. In the concentration camps, such entertainments were more than common, and almost all of the camp leadership used the prisoners for their own pleasure. Women did this too. The above-mentioned Ilse Koch regularly selected younger, more attractive male prisoners for service. Service in the concentration camp also provided an opportunity to satisfy unhealthy sexual preferences. Officially, this was not encouraged by the Reich. Irma Gries and Annelies Coleman, a guard from Bergen-Belsen, abused the female prisoners. Actually, Karkov also selected young men for himself, and that is why he did not mind his wife doing the same. Innocent entertainment. Certainly, the Nazis also engaged in leisurely activities. But even the most innocent forms of leisure among the Nazis could turn into sadism and brutality. For example, among the officers of the Reich, there were quite a few cultured people who loved music. There were many music lovers among the leadership of Ravensburg. Therefore, the senior overseer of the camp, Maria Mandel, suggested creating an orchestra of prisoners. New arrivals were welcomed with upbeat music, giving the SS officers a feeling of cultural sophistication. Mandel often came to the barracks to the orchestra women and demanded to play for her personally. The Koch couple was also music lovers. In Buchenwald, the attraction known as singing horses thrived. For the sake of entertainment, people were harnessed to dray carts with stones or a load of corpses, or carriages into which officers sat. These so-called horses had to carry the load and at the same time loudly sing spirited tunes. Sports activities took on peculiar forms. In a number of concentration camps, they revived such an Asian Olympic discipline as chariot racing. However, they were harnessed not by horses, but by prisoners. German officers liked to arrange photo sessions to send a card to their relatives back home. Different backdrops were chosen. There were also quite normal scenes like huts, clay houses, churches, nature. But filming in front of gallows, bodies of the executed and burned buildings was also very popular. The most famous are the photos of the officer of the 332nd Infantry Regiment of the 197th Division with Zoe Kosmedemyanskaya alive and dead. According to the materials from the Nuremberg trials, they described a rather exotic form of collecting, known as census, which involved specially treating human heads so they were shrunk to the size of a man's fist. Such an item could have been made to order for a connoisseur from the head of a particularly liked prisoner in the concentration camp.